No helicopters have been procured for me to go to golf course. Thank you.
I've never said he wasn't a great politician. I'm just saying he's a officer.
It was supposed to be an interview.
How'd you play out there today?
Well, I found the conditions challenging, mostly because there's no grass on the golf course, but there never has been.
I'm thinking about the swag bag, and I had high hopes for the swag bag.
When you got 3 crevices on the green, your course is trashy.
What's happening, folks? Welcome back. Beltway Golfer, episode 11. This week sat down with the guys from the GolfDMV podcast, Claude, LB, and Vern. Had a blast. I was excited to sit down with them. They had me on their show, on their podcast about a year ago. So when I was getting ready to start the Beltway Golfer, they were one of the first guys I reached out to make sure I could repay the favor, if you will. So because it's 3 of them, this was my first one. It was more than just one-on-one. We had to, they had to coordinate some schedules, and we did it virtually over Zoom, which unfortunately the night that we did it, seemed like Zoom was having some serious issues. We all got kicked off a couple times, and Vern got kicked out, and we were struggling to get back in, but we had a limited window. So you'll notice, first off, that at the end, I connect with Vern, and I add a one-on-one with me and Vern for about 8 or 10 minutes. But also the conversation flows. It's a little choppy. It was heavily edited, so it wasn't ideal. But we had a lot of fun catching up and talking. And if you are listeners or fans of the GolfDMV, I think you'll enjoy it, hearing a little bit more of the background. And if you don't know the GolfDMV, hopefully this will prompt you to check them out, at least give it a listen, because they're a lot of fun. They just talk about golf around the area, and their show is a little bit more talking about their experiences and just having fun and all their wacky stories about where they played and who they played with and what happened out on the course. But they've got a great chemistry between them. One quick note before I jump to it, just for those that aren't familiar with it, they allude to Sherm, who in the early days of the GolfDMV podcast, it was Claude, LB, and Sherm, and that was the 3 when I was on their show. And at some point he left, and Vern came in to replace him, and they allude to it, and I meant to ask them about it, but I think we just got distracted and didn't get to it. So I'm sure you can reach out to them if you really want to know some details. But that's it. Hope everyone enjoys it. Here it is, GolfDMV podcast and the Beltway Golfer. Enjoy. All right, we are here on Zoom with the GolfDMV crew. How's it going, fellas?
All good, Alex. This is kind of a role switch because we interviewed you on our show. Man, it was a ton of episodes ago. I don't remember what episode it was, but we had fun. We were at Chatter, Tony Kornheiser's restaurant. Well,
now defunct
restaurant, and we did a show there. That was fun.
That was awesome, and because that was the first podcast I was ever on, was your show, and
really?
Because of that, I remember what number it was. It was episode 101.
Get out of here!
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, that's a big episode. I mean, you get to 100, either you're doing something right, or you have nothing else to do, or you have some kind of messed up perception of your own skill, talent, or demand. But 101 is like, okay, now we're on a different chapter. We're doing the big thing. So
Yeah.
And absolutely, I had a great time coming on your show. That I think that was like last spring or maybe early summer. But you guys have been rolling. So you've been doing this we just talked about it before we started recording, like since like spring of 2017. Your episode number is in the 150s. So I have a long way to catch up. This is going to be episode 11 of Beltway Golfer.
Nice.
So I got a long way to go. And the way that you guys churn them out, I'm not going to catch up until you guys all retire.
Well, one of us is closer to retirement than the other two.
Yeah.
I'll let the audience guess which one that is.
Well, let's start there. Actually, that was one of my notes. Let's start with a couple introductions on your side, and why don't we start there? LB, why don't we? Since he did the cue that there may be a retirement in your future. Why don't you introduce yourself and when did you join the GolfDMV crew?
Okay. So again, LB's, which is short for Lawrence Brooks Jr., if you must know. So I started with Claude. It must have been like episode 4, maybe 5, something pretty early in the rotation there. That's when Sherman and I both came along. How I know Claude, I don't know where you're going with this, so I'll go until you tell me to stop. How about that?
Go, roll with it. I want to know. How do you know
Go ahead,
Claude?
mute my mic.
Like, go get something to drink. I'll be. So I met Claude a few decades ago now. It's been it's over 10 years, I know. I don't know how, somewhere between 10 and 15, maybe. Claude and I used to attend the same church, as well as Sherman. That's how we all met. And
that's an actual church. That's not a euphemism for a golf course.
No, it's it was a real church with money and changing hands and people singing, all that stuff. The real deal, yeah.
Okay.
So that's how we met. And he started the show, and then he basically, I think he sent a text or email to me and Sherman one day. It's like, hey, I'm doing the thing about doing this show. Would you all be interested in doing it? And of course, I was like, absolutely. I mean, we're gonna talk about golf. I love golf, so it's right up my alley. And Sherman was pretty much the same way at the time. I was just excited about, because we used to record in the studio at actually WTOP's studio back then. And that was my first time actually being in a radio station and seeing all the monitors and the equipment. And stuff. It was just, for me, it was cool. It was just, I'm totally out of my element, totally new to me, but I was totally fascinated with it. And obviously I like to talk a little bit too, so that was right up my alley. So that's how I got into the
okay, and so we're gonna get to kind of the origin and Claude being kind of the founder here, but let's bring Vernon into the conversation here. So Vern, you're the newest of the crew, of the GolfDMV crew. How long you been part of the show?
Since it was last year, since I think like last springish, maybe somewhere in there. I don't know the exact episode, but I've known these guys. I met them all in 2011. So it was a big golf trip. We all have a mutual friend named Rick, and I worked with Rick, and he said, hey, I know these guys from church, from the same church with George, and I ended up meeting all these guys. And in 2011, I'd only been playing golf for like a year, and he's like, hey, I'm doing a big golf trip going to Myrtle Beach. Would you like to come? I did, and that's where I met Claude and LB. At the show's inception, I was still playing with these guys regularly, so they would talk about me on the show and stuff like that. I'll let Claude, Sherm had a departure. He couldn't do it anymore for whatever reason. Claude would talk about that, and then I came in. So you got a bit of a Sammy Hagar, David Lee Roth situation. I don't know which one I am. I guess technically I'm Sammy Hagar. For those who don't,
yeah, you would be, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Hagar. So, but he was popular. He sold a lot of albums, so I think I'm doing pretty well. But
just don't make him drive 55.
That's right. So, so I was happy to come in because I played with these guys all the time anyway. I had been on the show a couple times as a guest.
Okay.
And I would like film stuff for the show occasionally and post it when I could or whenever it was good or whatever, stuff like that. So, but these guys are my friends, been playing with them for a long time, and I was happy Claude decided to include me on the second time, like as a fourth option guy off the bench, coming off the bench, putting up some points.
Can I ask a question though? I'm sorry to cut you off, but you said, was that so we've known you now since 2011? It's been that long now?
2011 was the Myrtle Beach golf trip. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Time
long
is going
time.
by fast.
Yeah. Still only shooting in the 90s. So, or they're just barely creeping into the 80s. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it, Alex. Yeah. So just kind of swung in there to help out once once Sherm had some other obligations and stuff like that. And I'm happy to do it. And I like being on the show.
Absolutely. I know. I've listened a lot since before you joined and since, and I think you add a lot to the show, and you've got you got a great voice for radio and your content.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me I had a nice voice for radio.
Well, I'm speaking truths out here, LB.
You didn't. Yeah, I mean, you're digging your own grave there, man. In your own grave.
I was gonna save all the pleasantries towards you towards the end, but I mean,
okay. All right. Well, I'll wait. My bad.
Good recovery.
All right. So and Claude. So you're really the linchpin to this whole thing. This is this is your concept. Am I right? And you kind of started the Golf DMV. So why don't you tell us about what led you to launch the Golf DMV back in 2017?
Right. Well, number one, thanks for having us on your show. The way it started, so I work in media. And so one of the networks that I work for is the company that owns a few radio stations here in the DC area. They Hubbard, they own WTOP, Federal News Network. And they had a partnership a few years ago that formed with a company in Minnesota called Podcast One. And they're basically just a podcast network. They're a platform. They've got all these different shows. They had this partnership. They wanted some DC programming. And so got an email from one of the higher ups that said, hey, looking for some DC podcasts. Anybody got any ideas? It can be serious, fun, whatever. And so I just said, I want to get involved with this. And so I said, hey, I would want to do a show. I said, well, what show you want to do? I'm like, well, I'm going to do a golf show. I'll talk about the area golf courses, talk to area golfers and, GMs and superintendents and stuff like that. And they said, yeah, let's do it. And so literally in about 3 weeks, they got all the artwork. We got the artwork together, and I thought of what we wanted to do once a week, and just launched it. And so it originally started with me being the only host, and I would interview, GMs or something like that, and then have a couple buddies on the show too. But the buddies would rotate, But like LB said, at that point in time, the person I was playing the most with was LB. And we used to get 9 holes in several times during the week. And all that stopped when I had a son. And so we used to play so much, all the time. And then when my wife got pregnant, we even played more because she was one of these sleepy pregnant people. And so like she would come home from work and literally lay on the couch and would look so tired and so exhausted and like done with life. And I'm like, hey, why you taking? I'm about to go play golf. And I just kind of ease out the door.
Sure.
And we was playing.
Get your rest.
Exactly. Get your rest. I don't even want to bother you. You're probably sick of looking at me right now. So I'm gonna leave and go play golf. So we played so much golf. And then, so by that time it was like, I asked LB like, hey, why don't you be a permanent, fixture on the show? Anytime we have any other people on, it was never really meant to be just a 3-person show. It just worked out that way because Sherman was playing a lot with us at that time too. And so it was me, LB, and Sherman. And anytime anyone else could be on the show as a fourth, we would do it. It was always an open fourth chair, Sure. But things just kind of evolve and build in its own way. And so we just show after show after show. And, as doing this, you have a plan and, you think once a week is enough time and enough space to knock them out, but it can get hectic, but 154 episodes is one thing that I'm proud of because, there's millions and millions and millions of podcasts that are out there. A lot of them are listened to by very few people. And we've got so much response. We get listeners who email us and want to play with us. Some of our best playing partners now are people that we met from listening to the show. I'm thinking about Reggie and Frederick. I'm thinking about our boy Aaron in Virginia. Just a lot of people who have reached out and stuff. They can also buy product if they'd like to at GolfDMVpodcast.com. But yeah, and so it's just the vision of it is just, a community of golfers of guys and women, men and women who just love the game, even juniors. And the show itself is real laid back. If anybody's listened to it, we're not like the stuffy golf podcast and no offense to stuffy golf podcasts, because I listen and watch some stuffy golf shows where they break down the texture of Bermuda grass and, they know all the stuff and numbers and stuff. We just talk about the fun, the frustrations, the love, the passion, the travel, courses we like. We love the trash courses too. That's one of the things that I missed about Patuxent Greens closing, and I think Marlton closed too. Yeah. I'm mad that they closed because I like to trash them while they open and tell people not to go there because they were so bad. But so that's kind of like what the show is all about.
First of all, I'm not sure I got that news. I didn't realize that Marlton had actually closed. I'd heard that it was on the verge of closing and that it maybe should have closed, but I didn't know that it actually
It's basically closed. Yeah, wow. Even when it was open, it was closed.
That's not lying. Yeah.
In our minds, it's closed.
We saw someone out there with like this small, not even gas powered lawnmower cutting the rough on like a long par 4 fairway. And it was hot. Do you guys remember this? I don't think you got. Were you guys there?
I've never played Marlton.
Oh, okay. It must have been me and Seth.
Yeah.
That must have been what it was. It was horrible.
When you disappointed Seth with that course.
Yet again, yeah. I took him to Marlton. I took him to Cross Creek.
Wow.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting, though. Just I wasn't aware of that kind of background of your origin. That essentially, Podcast One was looking for new ideas and saying, who wants to do a podcast essentially, and you kind of raised your hand and said, I got a good idea.
Yeah, and that's kind of my nature. I'm kind of a hand raiser and let's go and let's do it. You know what I mean? Sure. But it is hard. And this is one thing I love about having, especially these two guys on the show, because like Lawrence can crack their whip if like a show hasn't been, if it's been 8
Can?
days, like, hey, we supposed to be up every Sunday, like, okay, you know what I mean? Or like with videos and stuff like, but then Vern also has a lot of, you know, practical skills and ideas, and he's a go-getter as well. And so it all kind of works together for everyone who have these ideas and things the show can do, but they do it because everybody has an idea of what should happen, or Golf DMV should do this or they should do that, but not a lot of people will do it. You know what I mean? And my thing is, if you've got a lot of the ideas and, you know, just, hey, we should do this, well, go ahead and do it. And so that's why I love having these guys on the Golf DMV team.
You had brought up chatter, where when I was on Golf DMV, we recorded in Tony Kornheiser's podcast studio that was a part of Chatter. So that was a joy for me. I mean, I'm a Tony Kornheiser fan. Listened to his show for many years. Claude, were you affiliated with his show at all? Did you do some work on his show at all?
Yeah, so I did. So the way that I got hooked up with Tony Kornheiser and his crew, so there was a stint. If you remember when Tony was on Monday Night Football, during that time, his radio show wasn't on ESPN Radio, and it wasn't on ESPN 980. It was part of Washington Post Radio, which was a partnership between like the Washington Post and Hubbard, who owned WTOP, Federal News Network, and so they had Washington Post Radio, then it turned to 3WT. So Tony's show was on that. I was working there at the time, and then when his show came there, I was like the engineer on hand for his producer, Mark Stern, for anything that they needed. So I uploaded all the music in there, made sure all the lines worked, all the commercials were ready to go and stuff. Like that was just part of my job for that show. And whenever, Nigel couldn't get in or was on vacation, I would cover the show for him. And, you know, I did a good job. They trusted me and we built good relationships. And so, but when they left, and we went our separate ways, it may have been 2 or 3 years before I heard from them again. But then he left the sports radio scene and started his own thing. And that's when we got connected back again. They're going to open this restaurant, going to put a podcast studio in. And so I had to fill in for Nigel a couple of times, work the show and say, hey, we've got more people in. Can you help, this person's show and that person's show? And so I was just kind of contract. By that time I had started my own company. And so I was contracting out that work. And so we just built that relationship and so because I had access to the studio and they were fine with me doing it there, worked with them all the time. I said, yeah, you can do the show there. And so it's like, hey, and we met in Chatter because someone else was doing a podcast there and you were there for that. And I was engineering that one. I don't remember which one. It was the DC Links people.
It was.
Right?
It was National Links Trust. They
Right,
were
National
having
Links
a kind of a fundraising and kind of an announcement meeting there, and they recorded the Fried Egg with Andy Johnson.
Right.
In that same studio. So yeah, that was cool. It's a shame that Chatter's not around anymore. I thought that was a great concept to have a restaurant, bar. He was doing his podcast in the morning. He was renting out the studio to other people doing podcasts. I thought that was kind of the future, and here we are, and now it's sitting empty, I think, right?
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Restaurant business is hard, it's just tough.
Yeah. And that location has been through at least 4 restaurants that I know of myself, and that's not even my part of town.
Yeah.
But that's a tough location.
At least 4 restaurants that have come and gone in that particular location.
But they had kind of a fun ownership group too. A buddy of mine and myself met up there one rainy Monday night when Maury Povich was guest bartending and his wife Connie Chung was the guest waitress. And because there was thunderstorms and it was a Monday night, the place was basically empty. And Tony was there, Gary Williams was there, one of the owners, the old coach of the Terps. And there was like 8 people, in the bar. I got to have a long conversation with Gary and Tony. It was pretty cool. So now, since coronavirus and COVID, you guys are doing a lot of your shows remote on Zoom. Have you always been doing them remote, or do you do a lot of them you do in person?
Yeah, most of them we do in person. I mean, and we love doing them in person. So we would do them in a radio studio at first. And then I've got equipment that I travel with. Like I said, I had my own company. And so we would do it, at the LB's house or my house. But then right around episode 100, we kind of pivoted and said, you know what? We're going to start recording these shows after our rounds, right? And so we'll just record at golf courses after we play. And the cool thing is, you play your round, you set up in the kitchen area or outside on the patio. Folks are walking by, you hand them a card that, you wave and you talk about it. It just helps, people get some, for the show to get some notoriety and people to see, what you're doing and to meet different people. And a lot of the golf courses where we played, all the GMs and assistant GM, they were all happy to have us and host us. And so normally in a normal situation, pre-corona and then post-corona, as soon as we can get to it, we'll go back to recording the shows at the golf courses right after our rounds.
Gotcha.
Which ironically is when we're the most disappointed, it seems, but it's fine.
And you guys get around. You guys play a lot of different courses. I'm curious, where is LB? You just kind of alluded to it. How Chatter is certainly not your backyard. Where's your guys' home base? Like where does everybody live?
Yeah, so I live in between Laytonsville and Damascus, if you know that area. So I'm just south of. I'm probably 9 miles south of Rattlewood, 5 miles north of Laytonsville golf course. So I at least this year, I've gone probably to Laytonsville more this year total than I have in the previous, 15. Just because one of the things I've been doing lately, I like to go early in the morning to the range before work. So I'll get there at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. There's nobody there. You got the range to myself, the short game area, the whole deal. So between there and Blue Match, which is, just down the road from Laytonsville, those are my two practice spots, hands down, just because they're just so convenient.
Sure.
I prefer Blue Match in the evening because just maybe too much information, but Blue Match range faces east. So if you go in the morning, the sun is in your eyes, you can't see a damn thing. So in the mornings, I go to Laytonsville. If I'm going to range in the morning, I go to Laytonsville because the sun is at my back.
Too much information. That's the information that listeners to these shows need and want to know.
Well, there you go. There you go. You just learned something. So if you're going in the morning, go to Laytonsville. If you're up this way, go to Laytonsville because the sun will be in your back. Unless you're doing a short game area, then it's in your face. But it's in your back. If you I go to Blue Match in the evenings because the sun then is at your back at a Blue Match because it sets in the west. I think go east, rises, sets in the west. So it works out. So that's where I hail from. I've been out here 21 years now. Yeah.
Wow. And then Claude, where do you live?
Yeah, I'm in Silver Spring. So closest courses to me, Northwest, Needwood's pretty close. Hampshire Greens is close. So those are the three that are probably closest to me. Yeah.
So you guys gotten an opportunity, it sounds like, and I've heard on a lot of the shows to play with a lot of your listeners, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's something I like to do because I like to meet people. You hear interesting stories. Every now and again you may run into a weirdo, but you just spend 4 hours with them and then you're done. But for the most part, everybody we play with has been real cool. I can't think of one listener we played with that we didn't have a good time. And for the most part, there's a guy, Jerry Boston, who we play with all the time. And he played with him a couple of times. We haven't played with him like all the time, but he again was one of the original listeners to the show and reached out and like, you know what, why not just play with? Because again, we want to build just a community of guys in the area who get together, have a good time, and play golf. And to be honest with you, it's kind of weird. Women find a way to make friends, it seems, in ways that are a little different or easier sometimes than men, you know what I mean, as far as socializing and social scenes and things like that. But golf's a great way to build friendships and to to meet new people and find that kind of common interest. And sometimes it may seem weird, like, hey, if you guys want to come out and play with us, come on out, But we open the invitation, people jump at it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're highly disappointed in my game. I think because I host a golf show, they think that I play well, and so they come out and they expect me to be striking the ball, and that's just not the case at all. Period.
Have you guys had any like formal events, like kind of like a GolfDMV meetup or tournament or anything like that? Has that anything like that ever been in the works?
Yeah. So before Corona, we had a few live broadcasts at the Green Turtle in Burtonsville, Maryland. And so, we would just set up the equipment, folks can come in, order some food, we talk and stuff, and folks would eat, and we would do the show. And but we hadn't had any kind of Golf DMV tournaments and things like that. Because again, that's one of the things that's like, yeah, man. I mean, in theory, it's real nice. We want to do it, but there's so much work behind it, and we all have these full-time jobs. We all have family obligations and things like that. That makes it kind of hard to do. Although this year before COVID, we were going to do something the weekend of the Masters, at Blue Mash. And we were getting all that geared up. And then all of a sudden, COVID just shut everything down. And obviously the Masters postponed to November. And who knows what the fall looks like as far as, big gatherings again. And so we can't do that. But we were going to have something at Blue Mash for the Masters in 2020. Yeah.
I'm sure it's interesting. Before I started Beltway Golfer, I kind of tested the waters a little bit, and I sent direct messages to, I don't know, 25, 30 of followers and folks that I connect to a lot, asking them about podcasts that I listen to. And a huge percentage of those, I mean, they were all based in the area. But the Golf DMV podcast came up over and over and over and over. And
Get out of here, really?
Oh, absolutely. And
nice.
and when that's why I decided, all right, I really want to start a podcast, but I can't do the exact same thing that the Golf DMV guys are doing. They've been doing it for 3 years longer. So I've tried to make it a little bit different, where it's just strict, hardcore interviews, where I'm talking less about my own game and where I had a quadruple bogey the other day, which happens a lot. Because I've also had a lot of folks reach out to me. I asked, just posted on Instagram the other day and kind of asked my followers who suggested some good guests. And one of the first guys said, you should have the Golf DMV crew on this. And I told him, we're already communicating and planning that up. But I started chatting with the guy, and he said, and he actually said he hadn't listened to my podcast yet. And he said, it's not nothing with you. It's just the format. I actually like, I like what those guys are doing, where they're just kind of really casual and talking about their rounds. And it's almost like a radio show where, you get to know the personalities a lot better. I'm sure you guys hear that a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, and what happens is you kind of build these staples, and it's all about, I guess, kind of being true to yourself. I mean, like I said, we could try to go, golf by the numbers and the heart, but that's not what we do, and then, everybody's personality kind of comes out, but we develop this stuff where, like, we've got the Manny Millions thing where, so we talk about my son a little bit and how that goes as far as PGA stuff. And if you make the cut, but you finish last, how much money do you make? So we track something like that. I mean, it's those silly kind of inside golf stuff that we do. And LB does a profile of every person who makes a cut but finishes last, and how much they made in career earnings. And I mean, it's just, I'll turn it over to LB, but things just develop. And I think when you're naturally just who you are, your people gravitate to you, and just as many people will say, "Hey, get those Golf DMV guys on." I know that there's some people will say, "I don't listen to that foolishness. These guys don't know what they're talking about." Claude can't even break 90 consistently, and so they don't even, so they don't listen to the show. It just depends on who you are and what you like,
Yeah. I think it's like, and I think you mentioned earlier, Alex, that you listened to the Tony Kornheiser podcast, and while his show, was a, quote unquote, a sports show, it really isn't. It's really a Tony Kornheiser show. You know what I mean? Sure. Tony's life, whatever's happening to him today, or the last couple of days, that's what he's talking about.
While there's a Honda Civic parked outside his house with Maryland tags for the last 3 weeks.
Exactly. Or why is his grass turning brown? Or the chipmunks and squirrel eating his tomatoes. I mean, so he brings you into his life, and the show. I mean, I've been listening to Kornheiser since at least the 90s, and reading him as a teenager. I was reading his articles, in the Post as a teenager. And we have nothing. Now we have golf, but at the time we had nothing in common. But it was the way he presented his information and his stories that it sucked me in. And I hope that our show, and I tell people, because I give cards out all the time. I mean, I can be at the range, I can be in the grocery store, and I'll hand out a Golf DMV business card, say, hey, check out our podcast. And the first thing I say is, even if you don't like golf, listen anyway. Because I guarantee you at some point in it, there's going to be something that you can relate to, something that will make you smile, make you laugh. And because, like Claude was saying, I mean, he listens to some shows that are stuffy or whatever about golf. I don't. I mean, I just don't. If I need information, I know where to find information about about the numbers about golf. I don't need you to tell me that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So make me laugh, entertain me. That's where, at least that's where I am with it. So I hope people that listen to our show laugh, because I laugh a lot, probably more than I should sometimes on our show. But I truly enjoy it, and it makes me happy. It makes me laugh, and I try and bring that, show that to our
Well, it conveys, and I think you guys do a great job of that. Oftentimes, on your shows, you guys are laughing before you're even done the introductions in the first 20
Right.
seconds, and you guys got a great chemistry, and that's kind of contagious. And to the kind of the analogy to Tony Kornheiser, I've met a lot of folks that can't stand Tony Kornheiser and won't listen to a show, and it kind of a turn off. However, the folks that kind of get sucked in and like it are incredibly loyal. And become like his TK Littles, as he calls them, and will listen for decades and decades. So I'm sure you guys are creating your own kind of followership or base of followers that are kind of doing the same thing. Have you seen that? Is it growing quite a bit?
It is. When we started out, I was excited the first few episodes when I just saw we had I had like 35 people who listened. I'm like, 35 people listened to the first 2 episodes. It's so great. And then as we kept doing it, and it was building and building, right now we're close to almost 900 people who listen to each episode. And we had, at one point we were like over 1,000, but I think people's schedules got knocked out of whack with COVID, and stuff like that. But I mean, I was at Needwood the other day, and I had to go to the range, and I had my GolfDMV polo on, and a kid there who works there. Gosh, we shouted him out on the last podcast, but I forget his name now. He said, you listen to that show? I was like, young man, listen to that show. I'm the host of the show. And so, would you like an autograph? You got a golf ball? I'll sign it for you. No. And so he was like, oh, I listen to that show all the time, man. And so it's cool when you're out and people recognize from the logo, oh, I listen to that show. I listen to it. So yeah, it is growing. But like you said, I mean, you're a few episodes in, it's a lot of work, especially when you crank them out every week. Because you'll find this, like LB said, like you said, when people hear something and they like it, they now have the expectation of that. And they want that every week. And it sounds like fun, and we do clown around, but there's a lot of polish that has to go with it too. I mean, it's like packaged chaos and packaged fun, you know what I mean?
And you just alluded to it. When you had a little break in your schedule, it sounded like you lost a few followers or lost a few listeners.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're not consistent, I mean, you guys have been doing a great job of knocking them out every single week. But yeah,
See, here you go, being critical. There's Lawrence. Always got something to say.
I mean, but do the math. You guys are on episode 156 or something like that, and
154. We're recording 155 when we get off with you.
Okay, so 155, and you started in spring of 2017. You couldn't have missed that many weeks.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, tell LB that.
I mean, okay, so just to set the level, so we did take off one Christmas. We took off for like 2 weeks or something. Christmas,
right.
Something. And I'm like, okay, it wasn't my idea. No, I'm not in charge. I'm just a talking head. So
now Lawrence is airing our dirty laundry.
we did miss a few here and there, but I mean, and to Claude's credit, it is a lot of work. I mean, I dig it. He's got a bunch of other things to do. Me being almost trying to be semi-retired, I have more time available than most people do. I don't have any kids. My kids are grown. You know what I mean? I don't have that to deal with at the house. So I have more free time than most people.
Vernon has 2 young kids at home, and LB will make Vernon feel bad because like a video's not posted to Instagram. And it's like, he's got 2 kids and a job. Like, what is he supposed to? And COVID has got the homeschool, and we're like, it doesn't matter to me. Get that video up on Instagram.
Right. See, our listeners don't care that you got kids. Content. They want content. They want it on Monday at 9 a.m. if you say that's your time. You got to give people what they want. That's all.
You got a point. You're right. You're right.
See, I get that. I mean, I can't relate to that since I'm really the only one doing this. I'm kind of, so I can't blame anybody else when something doesn't get posted. But I get that quite a bit just when it's time to play golf. One of my regular foursome is kind of in your position, LB, where kids are grown. He's not retired, but he's got a job where he can practically do it in his sleep, and he's got a lot of free time. And myself and other two guys, we got young kids, and can you get out for 18 in 2 hours? Why not? And it's just like, I'm juggling a lot of stuff over here. And
That's
trying to
LB.
make me feel good.
Who wants to meet me at Blue Match at 3:00 today? I'm like,
I'll put a little notice. You guys are like me. You don't belong to a country club. Most of the courses you play more often than not, I imagine, are public courses and municipal courses, just like me. Have you gotten some invites into some of the fancier joints?
I did. I got a chance to play TPC Avenel. A buddy of mine, he knows about the show. We worked together on some work for like the Wizards radio broadcast and the Caps hockey broadcast. And so he had something going on with, I think it was American Express or something. And they had a day at TPC Avenel with a short game clinic with Brant Snedeker. And so he said, he was open. He said, "You're not my first choice, you're my third." And so his dad and his brother couldn't make it. And so, and that's not bad. I mean, for a black dude to be your third choice to go to that's good. You know what I mean? He's fine in my book. And so I said, if your dad can't make it and your brother can't make it, I'm in. And so it turns out they couldn't. And so we went there and, so set it up. I mean, I saw the when Tiger Tournament was here, and they had it at TPC Avenel. The last 2 years that it was in the area, they had it there. And so I was able to walk the course as a fan and a spectator first, right? Never played it. I mean, long course. I mean, so tough, so hard. I'm looking at these pros play it, and then I get an opportunity to go. And so I'm like, man, this is going to be so awesome. Walk in. I mean, it's everything I thought it would be, from the dining area and all the other kind of stuff. So we have this little short game clinic with Brant Snedeker, which was awesome. And then we play our round. They give us a caddy, and so we're going around the court. And what was awesome was that they had us in a group of four. The other twosome who was supposed to be with us never showed up, and so it was just me and my buddy Brian and the caddy for all 18 holes, which was great. So we walked the course. I'm remembering certain shots from when the pros were hitting them in certain holes and stuff like that. So we get to 17, which is a par 3, downhill par 3 over water. And Snedeker's there. He talks to you for a little bit. You can take a photo, and you do like a closest to the pin competition with him or whatever. So he hits the ball. He hits it like maybe 8 feet from the pin or something like that, right? So I ask him, like, listen, I'm left-handed, and my theory is that you haven't swung a left-handed club. If ever, it's been years and years and years for whatever reason. I want to see what you can do with my club. And can you do it? I'm going to take a video of it for my GolfDMV show. We'll do social media. So he took a 7-iron, he drops his ball, and he snap hooked that thing so hard into the water. and then, so I take the club and I put it maybe, 12 feet from the hole or whatever. I'm like, I'm better than Brant Snedeker with left-handed clubs, at least, with one shot. You know what I mean? If you give him the rest of the round, he probably would have beat me. But that was probably the best, like, personal golf experience I've ever had, along with being able to play at a really, really nice private course. I won't ever be able to get back to TPC Avenue, obviously, unless any members listen to the show and you want to invite your black friends out. Diversity is what we're looking for.
We got 3.
Yeah. Then you can tell your friends, I invited my black friends out. And you can then boast about having black friends.
Sure. I was gonna say I wouldn't say that so fast. As your show keeps growing and growing and growing, I'm sure you'll get more invites like that. But hopefully, because another thing you guys touched on a lot, and this has happened even more so since coronavirus broke out, but also because we've had so many public courses around this area close in the last 10, 20 years, that it's getting tougher and tougher to get tee times. Weekend rounds are getting longer and longer. I don't know what the solution is, but I know there's a lot of really nice private courses around here that sometimes you drive by in the afternoon and there's no one out there.
Nope.
They need to figure out a way to get us out there.
Right.
Yeah.
To that point, those courses really could do something just like after 2 o'clock is open to the public.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, because most of especially in the summertime, like us, we play early in the mornings if we can get it in.
Yeah.
So if they did something after 2:00, and they could probably still charge $100 or whatever ridiculous number they want to charge, and they could probably fill up their tee sheet.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, that's kind of the way it is over kind of in Scotland and Ireland, where they have either certain times or maybe one day of the week where public access can get there. And yeah, they can still charge an arm and a leg, and I'm sure they'd sell those tee times. And if you don't want the public to come into your fancy clubhouse, then that's cool. But it would be it'd be something to at least open up some of those courses in certain times, get people out there.
Because you can't have riffraff just running them up the clubhouse.
Right. I'll tuck in my shirt. I promise I'll do. Well, listen, guys. This was a pleasure. Sorry we had some Zoom issues and it kind of turned into a two-man show, but we'll loop in Vern as well and I'll edit him in here. But I enjoy Golf DMV quite a bit. Thank you again for having me on last year. I'm very impressed with you guys just plugging away and knocking them out every week. And I know a lot of golfers around here myself are big fans of yours.
You know what? One thing we should do once COVID relieves, we should do a collaboration show. We should do a live show and we tape it and we both use the audio for our shows and video, but we just do a joint show. That'll be fun.
I love it.
Do it at a course and yeah.
In fact, so I don't know if you heard or not, but I interviewed a woman that Desiree Walker.
Desi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so she was, and we were kind of talking about that. It came up as just how many folks in the DC area either host their own golf podcast, or whether they be about DC golf or not, or national golf podcasts, but then are based in the DC area. And having some kind of podcast or meetup where we do a little round table or something like that, I think would be kind of fun.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be good.
Yeah.
At some point, too, we all have to get on the course together, too. We still haven't done that.
We got to do that, and then we can we can have some fun out there.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, I appreciate it very much. Keep doing what you're doing, and thank you very much for coming on.
Cool. There we go. Thanks, man. That was fun.
So one of the things I asked those guys, if we were talking about how LB lives up in northern Montgomery County and talked about the courses up there, and Claude lives up in Silver Spring. So what part of the area do you live in?
I live in PG County. I'm the PG County representative. When we play, we tend to go. They may have mentioned this, but we tend to go. We try to pick courses on either side of the Beltway that are closest. So I'll get a home game at Lake Pres or Oak Creek. And then they'll get one in Montgomery County, and then we try, like Columbia is about the middle for all of us. But the reality is, at the end of the season, we play much more often at Montgomery County, just because, as you're probably aware, that's where the majority, like there in Frederick, is where like all of the best courses are, and the majority of them are. I think in PG County we have like 4 solid options, maybe Enterprise, Oak Creek, Lake Pres, Renditions, if you consider that solid, and then maybe University of Maryland. So that's like 5. There's only like 5 courses in the county, so.
And I heard you guys talk about this on a recent podcast, how they're just getting busier and busier. I mean, especially after we lost Glendale.
Yes, yeah. We got to play there recently Saturday, and so not only are they busier, I did learn that they're still doing the spaced out tee times. So their tee times are 15 minutes apart. So that also explained why I was unable to get. I was like, oh, why can't I get on?
Is that Enterprise?
Yeah, Enterprise, there's fewer tee times now. They're still doing 15-minute spreads, and they're giving out, they're doing the 4 carts for the social distancing. So that was welcome once I got there. And our round only took 4 hours and 10 minutes, so it wasn't that bad. But,
did I read on your bio that, how long have you been playing golf for?
2010, so 10 years. Yeah.
And then you picked it up after kind of watching some World Long Drives?
Yeah, we moved. So I moved to LP over here, Beach Street, Lake Presidential, in 2009, and then like that Christmas, that December of 2009, I guess when the Remax World Long Drive used to come on, I just happened to be sitting around. Now, I had been to the driving range as a youngster before, so I was sort of familiar. My dad played, but I'd never played, and something about this was the year. I think this was year 1 or 2 of Jamie Sadlowski winning. I'll never forget. Yeah. And just watching it, I was like, oh yeah, the driving range is fun. I was like, look at these guys. So I just like that summer or that following spring, I was like, I went to Nighthawk driving range in Crofton. It was just like, yeah, we got to, I mean, to be young, I'm talking like just cold, just like multiple large buckets of balls, just crushing them all over the place. But just like, oh, this is fun. And then that's how I That's how I got into it. It's taken me 10 years to like focus on short game and trying to be good. So
Yeah, it's taken me 30 years. That's funny though. Sadlowski, he was the guy that really kind of made World Long Drive hip. I mean,
I think he
could
did.
crush it.
He could.
And he was a tiny guy too.
Yes, I think that's what appealed. I was like, oh, look at him. He's like a regular guy. And that's where I first started to learn. I bought like Hogan's. I have all the books. Like I've done like a lot of the systems, like from Mo Norman, single plane. I've studied a lot of it. And when I first got into it, this is where I first started to learn about lag and that golf was a speed game. Because I always thought it was similar to like baseball, where like, Altuve can hit somebody small. For those who don't know, like Altuve is a small baseball player, but he can hit it out the park. But he's 210. He's bulky. Like you need weights to get the bat moving through. But in golf, you get the aid of the the carbon fiber shafts and the flex where what is it? F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration. If you're fast enough, you can hit the ball a long way and not be you don't have to be Brooks Koepka size or something like that. So,
sure. I mean, in Altuve's case, it also helps when your hitting coach is banging trash
that's true. That's true. Breaking ball. Yeah. Oh man.
One of the other things that we started to touch on, but we didn't actually get into it. GolfDMV podcast is now it's not just a podcast; it's on the radio, right?
Yeah. On WFED 1500 on Federal News Radio. Thanks to Claude and all his connections. Claude's one of these guys. Have you ever met somebody who seems to know everybody and everybody you talk to has a positive thing to say, like, oh, I love that guy? Sure. That's Claude. Like I've met other people. There's a whole the job I work at now. I work at because a friend of his he hooked me up with to do some video. He worked there. He's just that guy. It was like, how did you know him? Through I think he went to church with Claude. I did some video for him. Now I work at this great company. So he's one of these guys that everybody you talk to, they love. And so I'm not surprised that at WFED, he had a great relationship with like the station manager, the programmer or whatever, to be able to get our podcasts on the air there. So it's been cool to say radio show, even if it's W15, it's 1500 AM and it's at 7 a.m. on the Saturday. It's a start, you got to start somewhere.
So say that one more time. 7:30 a.m. on Saturdays.
I believe it is. And if I'm wrong, LB will curse me out, but it's fine. Yes, WFED 1500. We're in the lineup. You can go to their website and just check us out. And the time, but it's Sunday morning. Yeah.
But not many podcasts can say that. They can't. They say they're a podcast and radio show. I almost feel like radio show should come first. You guys have your website's GolfDMV podcast. You gotta get the GolfDMV radio as well.
I'm working on a new. I'm setting up a new website to modernize a little bit, and I will put a heavy emphasis on the radio show aspect, because you are right. That is a big plus that it will separate you that not a lot of people have.
Yeah. So where do you find yourself most often at an LP, like presidential?
Yeah. Well, no, honestly, probably Montgomery County, the Moco courses. To be honest, like LP, I don't play with myself. Sorry, my daughter made an appearance there. Supposed to be in bed.
I'm used to that. My son makes appearances on my work calls all the time.
Oh, okay, good. LP, probably 3 or 4 times a year. It's if you've listened, or for anybody else who's listened to the podcast, it's sort of a tough course for us for some reason. It's just one of those courses where we 5, 6, 7, and 8. We have a tough time, but we like it. It's a beautiful course. It's challenging. We like to play there. But getting the guys, and I like it because it's a home round for me. So I basically just roll out of bed and I have like a 2-minute ride to the course or whatever. So, but I think most of my rounds are probably Montgomery County, probably in the Hampshire Greens, Needwood, all the that type area up there or whatever. And then occasionally I will go down to Virginia, to Fredericksburg and stuff, to play with my dad down there, an hour away or whatever. So
listen, it's my bad. It's a bummer. I'll blame Zoom that we couldn't get really all 3 of you on the call for the entire
we'll all
thing.
blame Zoom. It's their fault.
But I'm glad. I appreciate you hopping back on for a little bit, and so we could chat a little more. And let's definitely get out and play some golf sometime soon. But otherwise, keep doing what you're doing. Big fan of the show, and know you guys are growing, and we've got a lot of fans in the area.
All right, thanks a lot, Alex. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
I got ideas. Johnny Wagner's ideas. I don't have a good golf game, but I don't really care. I'm a regular dude living in DC, and I want to know about DC-centric golf stuff. If you can tell me something that I don't already know, then that is great for me. I don't want the regular stuff. I want exciting stuff. I want different stuff. I want stuff I can't hear elsewhere. But I want it to be about BC golf.